Welcome back to Things You Don't Know, where the past, present, and future all crowd together around the microphone. I'm Dr. William Weaver, joined by my co hosts who always keep their barometers calibrated.
Dr. Sean Deneen here, folks. And friends, today's episode is one of heat, history, and hard evidence.
And I'm Chandler Foster here, guys, always ready to clear the air. Today, we're talking about climate change, not the buzzword, not the political football, but the scientific reality that is. A story written in ice cores, ocean tides, wildfire scars, and the rising thermostat of the planet itself.
To understand climate change, we start not with computers, but with ice. Deep beneath Antarctica and Greenland lie frozen cylinders of time, ice cores, each layer trapping bubbles of ancient air.
Think of them as the Earth's diary, a 700,000 year record of carbon dioxide, methane, temperature swings, and volcanic ash, all pressed into crystalline pages.
And the story they tell, the planet's temperature rises and falls in natural cycles. Yes, but nothing in that entire 500,000 year record matches the speed of warming since the industrial age.
Before 1850, CO2 rarely climbed above 280 parts per million. Today, over 420 parts per million, the highest in human history.
And here's the giveaway: the carbon itself is different. When we burn fossil fuels, they release a unique fingerprint, older, heavier carbon isotopes. Ice cores detect that signature and show it decreasing as temperatures rise.
In other words, the planet didn't just warm, we warmed it.
Yeah, climate change isn't complicated magic. It really isn't. It's just basic physics. CO2 traps heat, always has, always will.
We've known this since 1856, when Eunice Foote, a scientist often overlooked in textbooks, showed that carbon dioxide absorbs more heat than normal air.
Fast forward 170 years, and the planet has the receipts.
Gee, that's a good way to put that. Average global temperature has risen 1.2 centigrade or 34.16 degrees Fahrenheit. 34 degrees Fahrenheit increase since the late 19th century.
Sea levels up roughly 8 inches in the last century, accelerating each decade.
And the oceans? Well, they have absorbed 90% of the excess heat, and they're turning more acidic as they do.
Yeah, and that's very important. As the sea levels rise, it engulfs more land territory. As the oceans warm, guess what? The fish and the other flora and fauna that are really critical for the planet are dying. We're talking glaciers in the Himalayas, the Alps, the Rockies. They're all retreating. The Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the global average.
And that's not the only consequence, friends. Wildfires burn hotter, heat waves hit harder, hurricanes intensify faster. These aren't predictions, they're observations.
And we really need to listen too, because the planet is speaking to us. It's not whispering.
The data does not come from just one source. It comes from thousands. We're talking satellites, buoys, like in the ocean, tide gauges, weather stations, coral reefs, tree rings, soil samples, different tools, same conclusions.
Well, let's talk about coral reefs that you just mentioned, Dr. Weaver. Corals grow in layers like tree rings and record ocean temperatures. Their chemistry shows that the oceans are warming faster than any time in at least 11,000 years.
11,000 years?
Yes, sir. That's freaky, isn't it?
Yeah, to me it is.
Should be.
It certainly is. Or look at the forests. Trees grow slower in hotter years. The rings constrict. Whole continents, especially in the tropics, now show decades of heat stress. It's the exact opposite of what happened in the Netherlands, where land was reclaimed from the sea.
Right. Permafrost in Siberia and Alaska is thawing, releasing methane. That's a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than CO2.
Now, this is particularly a haunting statistic to me here. Antarctic sea ice has hit record lows. I'm going to say this next sentence twice because it's so important. Greenland is losing 280 billion tons of ice every year. I say again, Greenland is losing 280 billion tons of ice every year.
That's not a melting ice cube, folks. That is a melting continent.
Now, at this point in the conversation, you always hear a familiar chorus: the skeptics, the contrarians, the quote, just asking questions crowd.
Some claim climate always changes. That's true, but not like this. Natural cycles are slow. Our warming is 20 times faster.
20 times faster?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Others say it's the sun. The fact is that solar radiation has been stable or declining for decades while temperatures keep on rising up.
That's correct. One of the things that we know about our star, the sun, is that, it's getting older, it's putting out less, yet here we are. The temperatures just keep going up. A few argue that scientists are exaggerating for grants. Yeah, right. For example, Dr. Richard Lindzen, who is a retired atmospheric physicist, accepts that the climate warms, but argues that CO2 is not the major driver, claiming the climate is far less sensitive than mainstream science finds.
Aerospace engineer slash solar physicist Dr. Willie Soon claims that global warming is primarily driven by solar variations and not human activity.
Here's another argument. Dr. Judith Curry, a retired climatologist from Georgia Tech, does not deny that warming happens, but argues that the climate system is dominated by natural variability and that risks of human caused warming are, in her words, overstated.
Interesting interpretation of the data, and I'm sure quite incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
195 independent scientific organizations, we're talking NASA, NOAA, and the IPCC, and the Royal Society, and several others. I could go on for a while, all agree on the same conclusion. Now, yeah, this is a scientific conspiracy. How did they get all these different people to join in? Science just doesn't do conspiracies that big.
Then there are the loudest voices, certain public figures, pundits, politicians, who still insist climate change is a hoax or natural, a plot to lower standards of living, or insignificant.
But none of them, i.e., Donald Trump, can explain anything. They can't explain away ice core isotopes, or satellite data, or ocean heat content, or rising seas, or melting glaciers, or even the fact that the 10 hottest years on record have all occurred since 2010.
Denial doesn't survive contact with reality.
Numbers can feel abstract, but climate change is very personal.
Yeah, in Bangladesh, rising seas swallow farmland. It's that's observation, not supposition. In California, wildfires erase entire towns. Again, observation, not speculation. Unpredictable and changing rainfall patterns in the Sahel region are a primary driver of people being forced to move from their homes. In other words, migration, and an increase in violent clashes. That's conflict. Okay. Now, what is the Sahel? It's a semi arid strip of land in Africa. It's highly vulnerable to climate change, experiencing both severe droughts and extreme erratic rainfall that causes flooding. This unpredictability disrupts the traditional rainy season, making it difficult for communities to farm or to raise livestock.
In Miami, salt water actually seeps up through the sidewalks. In Alaska, indigenous villages relocate as permafrost turns to mud. In the Pacific, whole island nations fight for survival. And again, simply observation, no speculation here.
Yeah, when you live on an island and the sea levels rise, guess what? You have less island. This isn't someday. This is happening today.
Here's the good news: we know how to fix it. Some effects are permanent, but it's not too late to take action that will significantly reduce future damage. Urgent action is needed. Experts warn that the next few years are critical for setting the world on a path to avoid the most dangerous levels of warming.
Solar and wind are now cheaper than coal. In other words, it costs less and produces more and doesn't pollute. Electric vehicles reduce emissions very dramatically. Heat pumps, green concrete, regenerative farming, those things are happening, and technology is catching up to necessity. Well, what are those things? Green concrete is a sustainable building material that replaces traditional cement with industrial byproducts or waste, reducing the environmental impact of concrete production. Regenerative farming is an approach to agriculture that aims to restore or improve soil health and the overall ecosystem rather than just kind of sustaining it. Key technologies include, cover crops, minimizing tillage, and integrating livestock. In other words, we all know about the idea of rotating. We leave an area without planting it for one season, and we let the cows go out there and they poop and they help rejuvenate the soil. It's a very important thing.
Very important and very true, very helpful. And cities around the world, like Copenhagen and Melbourne and Seattle, are all pushing towards carbon neutrality.
Yeah, you know, energy grids can be rebuilt so that they don't do as much damage to the environment. Homes can be insulated, thus requiring less heating and cooling. Transit can also be electrified.
We aren't waiting on miracles, ladies and gentlemen. We're scaling solutions that already exist.
Climate change isn't just a prophecy, it's a math problem, and math problems can be solved.
Future generations will not judge us on what we knew, but on what we did.
Our choices now determine the coastlines, forests, and weather patterns they inherit.
And the story of climate change is not one of doom, it's one of agency. We caused the problem, which means that we can correct it.
We really stand at the hinge of history here. It's a turning point as critical as fire, agriculture, or electricity.
If you'll indulge me in a little personification here at the moment, a planet is speaking to us all. It's asking, will you tighten the bolt? Will you patch the leak? Cool the flame.
That's a really great way to put that, Dr. Deneen. The Earth is warming, the science is settled, and the time to act is right now.
I agree. Well, for things you don't know, I'm Dr. William Weaver.
Dr. Sean Deneen here.
And I'm Chandler Foster, reminding you that the climate is not waiting, but we still have time to change this story. Bye for now, folks. Come back soon.